All right, and time for Brent's Anime News Corner with the news of the week for the week ending January 29th, 2011. We're about a month into 2011, and Funimation is back to streaming Fractal, simulcasting it in fact. They apparently have managed to do enough to curb fan subs of Fractal to get the original company to allow them to simulcast. So they're back on schedule streaming Fractal if you want to check it out. Meanwhile, perhaps related, Funimation sued 1,337 One Piece torrent users. You can figure out what that number means. They've sued a bunch of them, mainly asking them to stop seeding and delete their copies, but will also seek damages. ANN has a hash of the file if you want to see if a file you happen to have in your hard drive might just be one of the ones that they're going after, and they're going after it based on IP address. So you can find out if you're one of the ones affected. In award news, Summer Wars has been nominated for an International Cinephile Award, but did not get it into the running for an Oscar, sadly. A few other animated films, including How to Train Your Dragon, are now nominated for Oscars, but Summer Wars didn't make it into the running, sadly. It is up for the International Cinephile Award, which is good, I guess. Maneki TV, which apparently was a rather popular live streaming service for Japanese TV. Basically, they would take Japanese TV broadcasts and stream them over the internet, has been proclaimed illegal by the Japanese Supreme Court. The case went all the way through up to the Supreme Court, and they said, yeah, you can't do that without some kind of licensing deal with the original TV stations, which they didn't have. They just put it out all on the internet, and no, they can't do that. Meanwhile, more news on the Tokyo Anime Fair boycott extravaganza. Tokyo Anime Fair has seen 20% fewer distributors over last year, but they're still negotiating with folks, including the folks who are started the other new fair. TAF is still going to have Toei, Studio Pierrot, Tezuka Productions, Sunrise, Bandai Visual, Studio Ghibli, Production IG's parent company, Shogakukan, Shueisha, and Bones. So they're not hurting for people to be involved in Tokyo Anime Fairs. It sounds like that's definitely still going to go off. The competing event, meanwhile, Anime Contents Expo, has announced a companion anime theme song event called A-Fest, which stands basically for Anime Song Festival. And it's going to include Ali Project, Kurebayashi, Minori Chihara, Grand Rodeo, Jam Project, and Man from Macross Frontier. So, pretty significant set of guests there for A-Fest, which will happen, again, same weekend as Tokyo Anime Fair to sort of compete there. It's interesting. It's the first time I've heard of an anime theme song festival, essentially, specifically. In weird news, Sci-Fi has decided to start broadcasting Chrono Crusade in February, the sort of fantasy Catholic Church with demons hunting story. Came out a while back. Must be a cheap license, that's all I can say. They'll be airing 2 back-to-back episodes starting at 11 o'clock in the evening on February 22nd. So you can watch Chrono Crusade on Sci-Fi if you want. Meanwhile, moving on to manga, Vertical has announced that they have licensed Tezuka's Princess Knight, which is considered arguably the first magical girl story and one of the first shoujo stories ever. So pretty cool that that's going to come over here. It was licensed, a while back as a bilingual manga, but it's since gone way out of print. So good that we're going to get a real classic manga over here soon. Meanwhile, a manga about the rise of a corporate executive is going to get an anime, and I don't normally talk about these sorts of things, but a manga called Shima Kosaku is going to turn into an anime. They're describing it as a somewhat unusual anime because it's about a corporate executive and what it's like being a corporate worker, especially at the higher levels in Japan. And apparently it's popular partly because it sort of explains business in a way that usually is not done in manga, and a lot of folks just don't know about. So that's cool. Japanese manga magazine Comic Rush has announced they're moving to an all-digital format. They're going to publish all of their stuff online. They've already had some digital stuff, but it's one of these magazines, just no more print, all digital. That magazine is the home of Tonagura, Bushitsu no Dwarf-chan, Marudere, Godbird, Tamahime, and Shinakoi. And no, I haven't heard of any of these ever either. So, who knows? Finally, in manga news, a Swedish translator has been the charges for him on child pornography charges have been upheld. Apparently, some folks found some, let's just say, some manga illustrations of young folks involved in sexual situations on his computer. He's been fined the equivalent of $3,900 US. However, the Court of Appeal did lower the fine to $860, so it's almost a slap on the wrist, to be honest. He's translated over 80 volumes of various series over the last decade. Although the company he was translating for sort of dropped him as soon as this case came in. And he had about 51 images on his computer that depicted various images that were just not appropriate, of which I believe 39 were manga related. So 4 of them depicted actual children with a sufficient degree of certainty, i.e. there may have been filters involved, but yeah. So, gotta be careful about that. Moving on to some weird miscellaneous news. A library in Malta has put a book called Manga, The First 60 Years on restricted access, meaning that you need to actually request access to this particular volume before they will, let you read it. It's not on the regular shelves. And a lot of folks have been crying censorship over this. Fortunately, I have a copy of this manga, or this book, so we'll be talking about this on Otaku News Live in a little bit. So tune in for that. I can chime in on this, and I have some strong words about this particular subject. In music news, X Japan, the very popular Japanese pop music band, rock band, has signed on with EMI Music in North America. So they're going to start releasing music in North America. They plan a single to be released on March 15th, with an album in the summer and a tour sometime this year. So cool to see a Japanese band like that actually get a contract over here and start pushing things over here in America. There's going to be a Macross Frontier concert on the PSP Home in Japan. So all of you Macross lovers, as long as you have a Japanese PSP Home system, you can not PSP, PS Home, PlayStation Home, duh. So if you have PlayStation Home, you can tune in to this Macross Frontier concert. There's no details on the actual date that I could find. It will feature digital versions of both Cheryl and Ronka, with the singers actually singing live through the service. So interesting doing sort of a digital live concert. See how it goes. Final wacky news of the week. Fuji Q Highland, which is a theme park in Japan, has announced basically a makeover of their rooms that's Evangelion themed. Now, they've done some of this in the past, but this time they're actually doing a full-scale makeover where the hallways will look like Nerve, and there will be at least one room revamped to look like sort of Eva-ish. You'll be able to sleep in a plug suit. In an entry plug, and there'll be a life-size Rey statue in the room, because that's not creepy at all. Here's an example of what it'll look like. Yeah. Kind of creepy, but it's all going to be Evangelion themed, and they're going to put a life-sized, I think, head and shoulders of Eva Unit 2 on one of the walls. So you'll see it sort of bursting in like it did in the anime. There'll also be some interactive voice touch panel work. The telephone will have comments in Rey's voice. They're actually getting Rey's voice actress to record lines for it, and you'll get a badge and stuff like that. So yeah. Great. And if you want to have this experience, it will only cost you $450 a night, subject to seasonal price changes. Yeah. So that's the news for the week. Thanks for watching.